Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to yet another episode in Inner Guide Q&A program. Now it's been a long time that we haven't done a Q&A session. So today we are going to answer one of your questions. Someone has mentioned in the comments that it said that what to do when the life is becoming unfair and what to do when life is not going in my way. Well, we are going to talk about this today. First of all, remember the nature of our life. What is the nature of our life? Life is a little bit unfair. That is the real nature. But the problem is we expect that everything in our life to be perfect and to be fair. That is the problem. That is where the real problem is. Because Buddha said, if you have expectations, if you have more and more expectations inside yourself, chances are very high for you to feel so stressed. So remember that expectations stands for suffering. If you expect the life to be fair, you will suffer, right? So the nature of our life is, it is a little bit unfair. So, how to face such situations? How to face unfair situations in our life? Well, I want you to do 3 things when you face tough situations in your life. Right? These are very simple, but yet when you practice it, it is very hard to do that, but you can achieve it. Number 1, first of all, you need to realize what the situation is. That is the first thing that you have to do. If you're going through a hard time, right, you need to analyze about that and see what the problem is. Well, there are 2 types of situations in our life. What is that? First type of situation is the situations which are in our control. Experiences which can be changed by ourselves, right? And the second type of situation is the situations which are out of our control. We cannot do many things about that situation, right? So these are the 2 types of situations that we go through in our life. So first of all, you need to analyze and you need to see what the problem is, whether it is in my control or out of my control. Right? When you realize about the situation, then you can do something about that situation. Okay? That is the first thing you have to do. Analyze the situation. Number 2, if it is a situation that is in your control, just do something to change that situation. So, what are the things that are in our control? What are the situations and experiences that we face in our life and which are in our control? Well, if you face a bad time, if you face a stressful situation because of your own faults, because of a mistake that is within yourself, then you can change it. Because we own our mistakes. We are the owners of our mistakes, and the mistakes can only be changed by ourselves. No one can change that. Someone can advise you, someone can show you the path, but no one can make it correct than you. So, what you have to do, you have to change the situation. If it is your mistake, correct it. If it is your fault, then do something about it to change that situation. So these are the things that are in our control. Remember. Here's the third one. When we face the situations that are out of our control, how to face that situation? Well, these are the situations we spend most of our time trying to change that, but we cannot do anything about that situation. So what are the situations which are out of our control? There are many things, right? Criticism is out of your control. People's opinions They're out of our control. How people behave in front of you is totally out of your control. They are their choices, not your own choice. But we try to change these situations and we become so sad and depressed trying to change, and we find that we cannot change this situation. So if you cannot change the situation, what you have to do? You have to change your perspective about the situation, right? You can change the perspective about the situation, because the perspective and the way you see that about that situation is totally in your control. Because your thoughts are in your control, right? So what you need to do is, if you cannot change the situation, change the perspective, change the way you see about that situation. Okay? So remember, when people act weird in front of you, when people try to make you angry, when people criticize you, right? When people give unwanted opinions about you, just think, these things are out of my control. I should not waste my time of my life to change these situations. It is much better to change my perspective about this situation. So how can you change the situation? How can you change the perspective? You can be kind to them, right? You can maintain a positive mindset inside you, right? It is much better to maintain a positive mindset daily, every day, right? Listen to some things like positive words every day. It is much better to do that, because the more you listen to the positive words, positive ideas, right? Then the more you become positive inside, right? Then you can change your perspective about the situation. That is what you can do. Always remember what Buddha said. It is a nice quote that Buddha said that describes about the life. Buddha said, "Achinti tampi bhavati, chinti tampi vinasati." That is one of the greatest and one of the nicest quotes that Buddha have told about the life. In life, Buddha said, "Achinti tampi bhavati." Most of the times, unexpected things happens. Isn't that true? We don't know what will happen in the next time, right? It is a mystery. So in life, always unexpected things happen. And the things that we expected will going to be destroyed, right? If we expect something, we don't get the same thing. That is the thing. So remember that quote that was said by the Buddha. Achinti tampi bhavati, chinti tampi vinasati. Right? And there's another quote that was said by the Buddha. Sadharanang vihanyanti. If you expect the life to be fair, chances are more that for you to suffer in your life. So live with less expectations, right? If you're going through a tough situation, just analyze the situation, realize about the situation, and if you can change the situation, do something about it. If you cannot do something about the situation, change your perspective. That is what you can do when the life is not going in your way. So make your life a peaceful one with the teaching. Nam Buddhaya. Good morning everyone. Welcome and welcome back to another video. From today's video, let's discuss about the problem of feeling worthless, right? Sometimes no matter how good we are, sometimes how good other people to us are, we feel worthless about ourselves, right? We feel that we don't have any value, right? My life, there is no value in my life. Why am I living? Have you ever felt like this? Now, this has been a big problem for me before becoming a monk, right? Before becoming a monk, we have to undergo a training period of like 1.5 years, right? I will tell you about my story. So I was staying in this monastery, and I had to learn how to become a monk, and we were practicing and everything. But since even though everything is good, everything around me is good, right? Everyone around me is good, and also even though I am doing good, that still I feel like, why am I living in this life, right? My life, there is no value in my life. Everything that I do, I fail. Sometimes I fail in my life. But when you fail like that, you think like, oh, I'm a failure, right? I don't have any value in my life. And that is not the reality, right? That when it comes to reality, that is not true. But still, mind is very good at distorting the reality and creating these scenarios in our mind to say to our life that you're worthless, right? You have no value. There is no value in your life, right? You're not good enough. So how can we deal with this? So I will tell you how I got the help from the spiritual companions and the monks and my teacher. So one time I was so upset of the things that I'm doing, and also everything that I have been doing went wrong, right? It wasn't successful. I was meditating, I was helping the monk, but sometimes I made mistakes, and I was worrying about these mistakes. No one complained about me. No one said nothing bad about me, but still my heart says to me that you're not good enough. You're a failure, right? So I was so upset. And now when you're in upset mindset, what is the first thing that comes out of you? It's your facial expressions, right? Someone can say your face is a reflection of your mind state. Okay, so I was upset, and one of the monks who was residing in that monastery noticed me that I'm upset. So he came up to me and said, like, tell me, what's bothering you? Is there anything that is bothering in your mind? You can say it to me. Let's discuss. So the first reaction, as usual, when someone asks from us, how are you, or is there any problem in you? What we say is that, okay, I'm fine, right? There's no problem. But he understood my mental state and told me, tell me the truth. I'm here to help you. We can discuss so that we can sort out the problem. So I told this condition of my mind, mental state of my mind, that I am feeling worthless. I'm feeling that I'm a failure. And then he said, okay, you're feeling worthless. Let's say you're feeling worthless and you're feeling that you don't have any value in your life. But now I need you to check the reality. What are you doing right now? You're meditating, you're helping the monks, and you're doing all the chores, and you're still feeling worthless? Is that the reality? One thing that he said is, check the reality, right? Check what is real. Because mind is pretty good at creating all the worst case scenarios and all the pessimistic thoughts in our mind. Because it's a thought pattern, right? One thing that our mind has is it has the habit of creating the thought patterns, right? Once we start to feed our mind with a certain thought patterns, it has this looping effect of creating this thought pattern again and again and again. The more we think it, the more it comes back to our mind. So he said that check the reality and understand that your life is not worthless, right? Your life, there are many things that you can be happy about, right? That's the reality. As humans, there is nothing that we can feel like my life is worthless, right? Because there are so many things that we can be happy about. Like being a human itself is something that we can be happy about, right? We got the chance to be a human and practice these good qualities, live as a good human itself is something that we can be happy about. And be happy about that you have air to breathe, right? You have people around you that smiles at you. At least something that find something that you can be happy about. Because there are so many things, there are thousands and thousands of things in reality that we can be happy about.
Okay, that is one thing that you have to do. Check the reality. Is it true that my mind saying that your life is worthless? But when you come to reality, you find that there are a lot of things that you can be happy about in our life. Okay, and there's another thing that you can do, and that is keep a gratitude journal, right? Write few things that you have to be like you can be happy about in your life, right? You can be happy about so many things if you think about it. So find something and write about it. And also another thing that you have to do whenever you get these kind of thought patterns is to try to give more, right? Try to help more to other people, right? Whenever you do that, you feel the value of the things that you do, right? The positive energy that you create towards other people, right? And whenever you give, whenever you help others, you see the smile of their faces. You see that people are thanking you, and you think that, oh, this is what the true value of my life, right? My life is not worthless. My life is valuable, that I can create many positive things around me in my life, so that it's not true that my mind's saying that I'm worthless, right? When you realize that, you come to this state and come to that understanding that how valuable this human life is, right? How many positive things that you can do in this life, right? When you do that, that state of mind will go away. So things that we have to do is check the reality and understand, ask from yourself that is that true, that truly that my life is worthless or not, right? And also be generous, help other people, and be happy and understand that your life is truly valuable. So keep this little advice in your mind and be happy.
Namo Buddhaya. A king wanted to write down a quote on his sword to not to be too much happy when he wins and to not to be too much sad when he loses. Now this king found out that his mind gets too much obsessed when he wins and his mind gets too much obsessed when he defeats. So he gave this job to write down a quote on his sword to his mentor. So the mentor thought for a while and he simply wrote down these amazing 4 words on his sword. It said, "This too shall pass." I'll repeat it again. This too shall pass. See, when we live in this world, there are worldly conditions that we have to experience in this world. The Buddha named these worldly conditions as 8 worldly conditions, Atta Loka Dhamma. In Dutiya Loka Dhamma Sutta, the Buddha explains this, that because the whole world revolves around 8 worldly conditions. And the 8 worldly conditions revolves around this world. What are these 8 worldly conditions? The Buddha explains that gain and loss is a worldly condition, and praise and blame is a worldly condition, and fame and disgrace is a worldly condition, and pleasure and pain is a worldly condition. So these are the worldly conditions that we go through and we experience in all of our lives. Now the problem is not having to go through these all worldly conditions. The problem behind this is our minds get too much obsessed with these worldly conditions. When we win, our minds get too much attached to it, and we forget that this victory won't last forever. And when we lose and when we defeat, when we fall down, our minds get too much obsessed with that defeat, and we think that this defeat, this sadness, this suffering will last forever. But in reality, all good things come to an end, and as well as all bad things come to an end. Nothing lasts forever. So how can we live by not being attached to this winning and losing, and not being attached to any kind of these worldly conditions? Now Buddha shows us the way to not to be attached to any kind of these things. The way to do that is to simply understand the nature of all these conditions.
What is the nature? The nature of all the worldly conditions is they are subjected to change. Right? When you win, it is subjected to change. When you lose, it is subjected to change. And it is impermanent. Simply, you can remind it to yourself that this too shall pass. Okay? When you hit the rock bottom, when you go through problems, when you go through difficulties in your life, just remember to yourself that this too shall pass. This pain, this suffering too shall pass. And when you win, and when you're happy, and when everyone cheers for you around you, always remember to yourself that this is not going to last forever. This too shall pass. That is one of my favorite quotes that I read recently. It says, when you win, you are not good as you think you are. And when you lose, you are not bad as you think you are. So when you win, everyone will cheer to you. Everyone will congratulate you. Everyone will say good things about you. But always remember, you are a man. You are a human. You are imperfect. And everything is subjected to change. Now, this does not say that you should not enjoy winning. You should not enjoy victory. You can enjoy victory. You can be happy about it. But simply understand this winning, this victory won't last forever. And when you lose, you have to remember to yourself that you are not bad as you think you are. You can learn from your mistakes. You can learn from your fails. And you can always improve yourself and always think that this is not going to last forever. This pain is not going to last forever. By simply understanding that everything is subjected to change, nothing is permanent in life, will help you to achieve a happier and more fulfilling life by not being attached to any kind of these extremes. When you win, do not be too much attached to it. And when you lose, do not be too much attached to it. Then you will be happy.
Imagine you're having a rough day and you're scrolling through social media. And you see these nice pictures, people are celebrating their life, having the best days in their life, celebrating and becoming happy. When you see these pictures, what do you feel inside? Sometimes we feel even more stressed and we feel like there's no value in our life. One of the biggest enemies of our happiness is comparing our life with others' lives. There is some sort of jealousy and envy that builds up in our life, in our mind. That is why becoming envious and jealousy and comparing our lives to others is one of the biggest enemies of our happiness. To overcome this, the Buddha introduced a special practice, and that is called mudita. Mudita means appreciative joyfulness. Always remember, when we compare our lives to others, and when you build up that jealousy and envy within yourself, it is not going to help in your success, in your life, right? Sometimes, like we stop in a certain place, okay? We hold on to one emotion and we stay in that envy and jealousy and thinking about other people's lives without making our life successful, without focusing on our life. So the Buddha said, when you see these successful people in the society, when people around you living the best days in their life and your life is not having such experience, always look up to them and think and wish the happiness of them. Okay? That is called appreciative joyfulness. Wish the happiness of beings around you, even though you are going through a tough time. When we see successful people, we should not be jealous at them. It is not going to help us. What we have to do, we have to wish the success on them. When you see someone is having the best days in their life, think of him and say, oh, may he be happy even more. May he have a prosperous and a happy life forever. If you do that, you're not going to give the space for that envy and unhappiness and that negativity in your mind.
the more you practice this positive mindset, the more you practice this appreciative joyfulness, you can be happy about yourself. Even on the hard days, even though your life is in a tough place. So that is why whenever we see successful people, people having a happy life, we have to wish the happiness of them. That is called mudita. So when we practice this simple Buddhist practice of mudita or appreciative joyfulness, we can be happy about our life and also we can be peaceful within. If there is one thing in common in this world that all living beings search for, that is the happiness. We all like to be happy. We all seek happiness in this world. If I ask from you, would you like to be happy in your life? What will be your answer? You will say, of course, I want to be happy in my life. I want this peaceful state. I need to be in that. That is your answer. That is the answer of all living beings. Buddha says that all living beings likes to be happy and they seek the happiness. If you really think about our life, we are in a never-ending journey of pursuing happiness. Let me tell that again. We are in a never-ending journey of pursuing happiness. That means we are pursuing happiness, we are chasing and we are seeking for happiness, but yet we have not found it. So, what is the reason for this not finding happiness? Why we don't find happiness in our life? We are seeking it, we are finding for it, but we don't find it. What is the reason? Well, the Buddha teaches us that we are finding or we are seeking this happiness from a source that the happiness does not exist. Because we are seeking happiness from external world. We are seeking happiness from these materialistic things. Well, when you seek happiness from materialistic things or external world, you get pleasure, but that is not happiness. Pleasure is something temporary and it gives you this instant gratification. But in happiness, the happiness is long-lasting and it gives you this happiness or the contentment about yourself. So that is why Buddha teaches us that you're finding the happiness from a source where the happiness does not exist. So the more you find it, the more you become frustrated. So, will we ever be able to find happiness in our life? The Buddha answers this question. He says, yes, you can find happiness in your life. How to do that? If you look closely to the first and the second verses of Dhammapada, Buddha says, if one with an impure mind speaks or acts, the suffering will follow him like a cart wheel following the ox. If with an impure mind one speaks or acts, the suffering will follow him. And in the next verse, Buddha says, if with a pure mind one speaks or acts, the happiness will follow him like a shadow following a man. So that means the happiness and the sadness entirely depends on the purity and the impurity of our mind. When our mind is pure, we can find the happiness. So, how can we find or how can we gain this purity in our mind in order to find the happiness? Well, Buddha teaches us there are a lot of things that you can do to make your mind pure. So today, I'm going to share with you a few things that can give you the happiness in your life, that you can find the happiness in your life. First thing, accepting the reality of life will give you the happiness. You know, life is full of ups and downs. Sometimes you have good days, sometimes we have bad days, sometimes we have beautiful memories, sometimes we also have miserable memories. So life is not something that is going equally every day. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. When you realize this reality, you can face these situations successfully, right? It is not always this bad experience makes us frustrated. It is our reaction towards this bad experience makes us frustrated. Whenever you get a bad experience or a bad day or a bad situation, tough situation, difficult situation, you have two choices. Either you can focus on the pain and feel miserable about that situation, or you can focus on the lesson that bad situation teaches us and learn from it and start growing your life. So, if you accept the reality of life, it is not temporary. Sometimes the people around us are not in our control. We cannot control their reactions. We cannot control their opinions. So when you realize these situations, you can face those situations successfully. That is one thing, accepting reality of the life. Number 2, Buddha said, be generous. Practicing generosity is a major practice in Buddhism. Well, in Buddhism, the generosity is known as Dhamma. In Dhamma, Buddha says that you have to give without any expectations. We have to give and we have to dedicate towards others without expecting anything in return. That is one thing that we have to practice. Most of the time, we like to hold on to things or gather the things towards us. That is what people think. When you gather more, when you collect more things, you will get rich and you will gain happiness. But that does not give you the happiness. It will give you the pleasure, but it is temporary. So what we have to do, Buddha says, be generous, give, help others, dedicate a part of your life on behalf of others. When you do that, when you become more generous, let's say like this, you gave some foods to a poor person, let's say like that. When you see that person is having those foods and overcoming his hunger and making his life much better, you can be happy by seeing that. When you become happy like that, you feel happy about yourself, right? Nothing can give you that happiness. Like by eating a good food, by dressing a nice dress, you cannot gain that happiness. You don't feel happy about yourself, right? Let's say after hundred of years later, maybe 10 decades later, when you think about that incident, I gave this food to this poor person. When you remind that, you feel happy. Even then you feel happy. That means happiness is long-lasting. So Buddha says, be generous, help people, do something nice every day for a person. That is one thing we can do. And number 3, forgiving. Forgiving is one of the most important things that we can do to create happiness in our life. We have to forgive ourselves. Also, we have to forgive others too. Because forgiving, when you forgive, it doesn't mean that you are saying okay to others' mistakes. It's okay. No, you're not saying like that. When you forgive, you make your heart free. So when you forgive, it's not for that person, it is for you. And also we have to forgive for ourselves. There are so many mistakes that we all have done in the past. If you hold on to past, and if you make this present moment miserable, that will not give you the happiness. So what do we have to do? Whatever the bad thing that we have done in the past, we have to have this ability to forgive ourselves and start all over again. We all have that ability, right? We all have that privilege to start our life again and make it a better one. Okay? So no one is perfect in this world. We all have done mistakes. One thing that we have to do is to forgive and start doing good things. So these are 5 things that we can do to create happiness in our life. And also, there is one happiness that is called the ultimate happiness in this world that the Buddha teaches us. That is called Nibbana or Nirvana. That is the enlightenment. When you realize about the reality of this life, and when you remove this desire or the craving that arises within your mind, then Buddha says that is the ultimate happiness. Simply, the Nibbana means Ragakkayo, Dosakkayo, Mohakkayo, Nibbana. That means removing of the desire, anger, and the delusion of the mind is called the enlightenment. So that is the highest level of happiness that we all can reach. So when you practice these practices, right, when you engage yourself in wholesome state, that will create you the happiness in the life. So practice these things and make your life a happier one. Namo Buddhaya.